Welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association, our national program on education, sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We have been charged to raise public awareness about education, helping to bridge the education gap, particularly for African American students and other people of color. And of course, in the context of this COVID-19 pandemic, which has been devastating and disproportionately impactful on Black communities, Black families across America. We're very pleased today to be joined by one of the leaders in the education field, former elected official in DC. His brother's got a long career in education. He now serves as Vice President of Advocacy and Student Professional Development Programs for UNCF, Sekou Biddle. Welcome, brother.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Dr. Chavis.
Very good. Listen, man, we have a lot of respect for all the great work that UNCF does. I want to focus on what you do. Kind of just share with our audience, what do you do with UNCF as Vice President for Advocacy and Student Professional Development?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I do a few things. So I came to UNCF several years ago to help us get more into community engagement work around how do we help communities actively work to help more young people finish their K-12 careers, ready for college, and then go off to college and be successful. And obviously, we support a network of 37 private HBCUs, and we believe the HBCUs have an important role in supporting the college educations of young people in America as they have historically done. I graduated from college. I believe strongly in the power of HBCUs for our country. And then the other work that I lead around our student professional development program team is really around what are the things that we can and should be doing with young people during their college careers to get them ready to exit college, not just with a degree, but really career ready and set up for early career success. So internships and other training that can help them walk out of college, prepare the knowledge and skills and abilities to walk right into a great fulfilling career and start their career fast and strong and hopefully see lots of success beyond that.
Great. Well, over the past 9 months and certainly going now into 2021, we've been focused on the impact of COVID-19 on the educational process. It's interesting that when something tragic happens in America, it happens even more tragic in our community. How do you view, from your perspective at the UNCF, what is the overall impact of COVID-19 on the education process from your vantage point?
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's been really, really challenging. So I'll give you a sort of cascade of things that have been really challenging. One, when you think about what happened in the spring, sort of the quickness with which we woke up to the nature of this disease, this pandemic, and schools began having to start to shut down. And a lot of our colleges were really challenged to transition to remote teaching and learning. We had students who were challenged to, frankly, all of a sudden change their schedules and find a way to get back home. Institutions that didn't have the infrastructure in place to sort of flip a switch and immediately go to online. And then, students having issues and challenges around simply having, whether it was a device to get online with or the proper internet connectivity. And it happened really, really quickly. And then over the summer, we ran into another set of issues when we saw the economic downturn that the pandemic created. A lot of students, lost summer job opportunities, and a lot of, jobs and internships that we run weren't able to accommodate young people. So all of a sudden they found themselves in sort of more challenging financial straits. They called into question for them whether or not they were going to be able to afford college in the fall, let alone whether or not what college would look like.
Gotcha. Let's talk about the education gap. We learned that it just doesn't start at college or even in high school. It starts before the third grade reading test.
Yeah.
Tell me what your perspective of preparation of students for college. What are the three main things that Black families, Black communities, Black leaders, our community that we need to pay attention to?
Yeah. I mean, I think, one thing is that we have to really, really value the need to really wrap around children, like the set of experiences that support, reading development. So, it's interesting that I think sometimes people think about just the reading to children, and that's hugely important. And it's, for young children, they need to read or be read to every single day in some way, shape, or form. And it doesn't matter whether you're sitting on the couch or reading a book at bedtime or reading the bus schedule while traveling to, like, children just need to get into the habit of understanding that reading is a vital part of their life, not just something you do for school, like you mentioned, to take a test, but something that actually supports your day-to-day living. And so I think, we got to really make sure that children get engaged with it and involved in reading and have an adult that is modeling that for them. I think the other thing is helping children and families understand and appreciate the value of experiences that help support learning, right? So what are the cultural institutions, whether it's going to the park or the museum or other things that help broaden children's, perspective and vision, that help the lessons they're going to get in school make sense to them. So they've got outside of experiences outside of school. And then I think, finally, what's really important is to help children have a really, really high sense of what's possible for them in their lives. I mean, engage them in meeting adults doing a variety of different things so that they know there are a lot of paths to success. Children should be able to choose which one they want to take, but they should know that there are a lot of different things they could do as an adult.
Exactly. Well, we represent the Black press of America.
Yeah.
We have 230 African-American-owned newspapers across America. We reach about 20 to 30 million people a week in print. Now we have a digital network where we'll even reach more digitally. But I want to go back to this whole reading. When I was growing up, man, of course, we got the daily newspaper, but when that Black newspaper came once a week, everybody in the family read it more than once. I mean, when the Jet magazine came out, we read it from cover to cover, and Ebony once a month from cover to cover. And not only reading just for the sake of reading it, but comprehending what the subject matter was about. And of course, everybody knows about having encyclopedias in the home.
Yep.
or world books, things that, but for some reason, some of the traditions of the past have changed. But that doesn't mean that the appetite for learning has changed. I think the young people today are hungry and thirsty for knowledge. The question is how to get it. So my next question is, how has technology impacted either closing this education gap or widening it?
Yeah. So, it's interesting, Dr. Chavis, because I think I like that you put that it could do either or. Technology has the capacity to be a great accelerator of just about anything. And I think right now, one of the challenges we're seeing is for children and families with access to the right set of technological skills, it is actually accelerating their capacity and ability to learn. And for children without it, they are getting left behind at an even greater rate. I think about things as simple as, my wife these days actually, gets her books from the library, but she's now just downloading books from the library online. She doesn't have to step foot in the library to get the books. And I think, that has the power to make engaging with public resources much, much easier for young people. The library system being available online removes a lot of the challenges that have often kept people from accessing it. And so I think there's a lot of ways in which engaging with and leveraging technology have a lot of upside to help young people. But we've also got to make sure that everyone has access to both the equipment and the tools, but also the connectivity. I mean, having a computer is only as helpful as the internet connection you have.
Correct.
I think what we're seeing right now is, probably an open question as to whether or not we need to view, high-speed internet the same way we view other basic utilities.
Exactly. In some European countries, notably France, they provide high-speed internet to everybody in France as a public service.
Yeah.
Because they can't afford for people who speak French in France to be behind the rest of the world. Unfortunately, here in the United States, it's still much more a commodity. It's something that has to be bought and sold. And of course, when it comes to education, particularly higher education, there's a price tag on knowledge. And I think that, when the schools are segregated, I came up in a segregated school system. There was a hunger and thirst, but after things got integrated, we didn't flood the libraries like I thought we were going to do. One time they told us we couldn't go to the libraries. And of course, that made us want to get in there, and because obviously they were trying to hide something from us to keep you. But now that the libraries are open, sometimes even here in DC, I pass by the new DC libraries, it's like hardly nobody in there. And this is before COVID. So in the context of COVID, this is really what I wanted to ask you. How do we inspire or encourage young people to take advantage, even in the context of distance learning, distance education, technology? And I want you to comment, because you're a parent also, how important it is for parents to be involved in the education of their children.
Oh, I mean, it's hugely important for parents to be involved. And I think that, oftentimes we misunderstand what's going on with parents. So I think most parents, from my experience as a parent, but also my experience, as a classroom teacher, I tend to find that parents, for the most part, are doing the best they know how to do. And that we need to help education systems better engage with parents to help them know. I mean, I could tell you, when I taught, the number of times I would ask parents to do things that they gladly did, but it was clear that they hadn't been asked to do before. And I think, there's a lot that's going on culturally around the examples that people see and have. And, a lot of parents are actually, I think, waiting for teachers to tell them, we need you to do X, Y, and Z, and they'll gladly do it. They just don't know that they need it. So I think parents are hugely important. I think, modeling the right behaviors. I think, just being supportive of their children's curiosity. I mean, I think this is an important cultural thing that, young children just are sponges. Like, they are always going to learn. The question is, are they going to learn the things we want them to learn? And I think, helping parents appreciate that wherever you take your child, whatever you're doing, there's always an opportunity for them to learn something. And if nothing else, just be, focused on, as a parent, like supporting and encouraging their learning. So when children, it's classic. You see children at the grocery store reaching for things, asking about, like, just engage, answer their questions. Yes, it gets tiresome, but like, that's the gig. When you're a parent, like, children are going to ask you hundreds of questions. Give them all the answers you have. And when you don't know, just tell them you don't know. But I think we've got to support that kind of ongoing learning, because that's what you want your children to take with them when they go to school, is to be, curious and to ask questions, and know that, like, adults are here to help them continue to learn and grow.
Great. Sekou, one of the things I want to ask you, how can the Black press be more helpful to you and to UNCF, and particularly in this program of encouraging the proper preparation for our young people to become scholars, to become owners? Like I said, it's just not to get a job, but to have a career track, a career passion. How can we be helpful to you?
Oh, yeah. Great question. Thank you. I mean, I think a few things. I think one is, I think we need to all, Black press, and also, historically Black institutions like UNCF and our member HBCUs and others, need to work more together on elevating and telling the stories of all the things that are working. I mean, I think that sometimes we fall into the trap, right? This, you don't have to work hard to find bad news. Bad news will find you. It's the good news stories about all the things that are working that seem to be the ones that get the least air and oxygen. So I think we got to figure out, how do we help elevate those things? I mean, for all the challenges we're seeing during COVID, this group of students we have on our panel this evening, we were talking with them earlier this week. Interestingly enough, there are several things that they have identified that they would like to see continue in a post-COVID time, because they feel like it's helping them learn. So I think working with the Black press to make sure we elevate all the stories, the things that are really working.
Right.
And then also, I think being really, really, really sort of, critical voices on the sort of societal barriers, the continued inequities and injustices that are preventing Black people and Black institutions from really having a fighting chance to be successful. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, you talked about, driving around DC.
Yes.
I mean, I travel around the city a lot as well. And I got to tell you that if you think about just what you see in one community versus another, it's hard to argue that we have actually committed to making it possible for children growing up in all communities to be successful. And I think
Right.
we have to, with Partners in the Press, sort of call public officials and other leaders, to task on, like, what's the actual evidence that there's a commitment to all the children? Because there's a lot of, there's a lot of talk about all the kids.
I know.
But
And
then we
the
don't see the
whole thing
work.
of gentrification has so changed DC, man. And
Yeah.
even around, I'm a Howard graduate, but you walk off Howard's campus now, it's a whole different reality.
Yeah.
Surrounding that school and other HBCUs. The urban centers are being transformed, and sometimes the natives are being removed.
Well, look, I grew up 13th and Irving Street Northwest in the 80s, and I can't afford to live there.
Gotcha.
Right. So, and I think we have to be very real about, if we don't really get serious about helping, like you said, the natives, the families that have been in these communities for generations, help them have access to the tools and resources to carve out a pathway to success where they are, then they won't have a chance. I mean, the conditions are challenging, yes, but I would contend that actually all the things that need to be in place exist.
Right.
The question is, are we going to pull them all together and make them available to people who need them the most, actually have real equity?
Well, look, I've got something I want to pitch to you.
Sure.
Having this discussion with you is giving me something I want to recommend, and we can talk about it after the show. But for Black History Month 2021, the NNPA, we would like to work with UNCF, particularly what you do at UNCF, that every day during Black History Month, we put out some of these positive stories, man.
Oh, absolutely.
The good news stories. I mean, it could be little short video clips on Instagram or Facebook, something that gets the messaging out, but also amplifies the fact that we have young people who are striving for excellence, who are being scholars, who are achieving in STEM, who are doing great things. But like I say, the mainstream media doesn't pay attention to them.
Yeah.
You almost have to do something tragic or be the victim of a tragedy to get news coverage in mainstream media. And I want to try to not only offer a counterbalance to that, but to talk about some of that good news that you mentioned that doesn't get covered. I would like to, I know it's
I appreciate that.
It's a couple of months, we can talk about it, but I really would like for us to explore doing something jointly together.
I'm absolutely, you to let me know what you need from us. I'm happy to make that happen. I think it's both for the broader community, but also to provide the kind of inspiration. I mean, you talked about, like, being at Howard, and I think about, growing up in DC, in the 70s and 80s, and the kind of examples of people and stories that I knew and heard about, and frankly, the kinds of Black people that I knew and my family knew in this community created the conditions for me to believe there are all kinds of things I could be doing.
Exactly.
And so it wasn't an anomaly for a Black person to be successful in a whole bunch of different ways. And I think we have to do more to create more of those narratives so that every child out there growing up believes there's something out there for them, and they may not have found it yet, but they know that it's out there.
Exactly. I think that while at some point in the history of our travail in America, we've had the oral tradition. But now I would argue that it's the oral and the visual tradition together. Sometimes young brothers say they need to see it to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
They need to hear it. And from a hip hop, if I could talk about hip hop, the artist said they don't want you to hear their music or to see their videos. They want you to be able to feel what they're saying.
Yeah.
I would like people to get a feeling of the desire, the aspiration, and the accomplishments of Black excellence in the education field.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I think that the more Black children that hear about, learn about Black excellence, and learn about it not as a set of exceptional stories.
That's right.
But as regular course of business, that these are people and stories and events that are happening every single day.
Exactly. It's
And
like I tell a lot of young brothers and sisters, look, resilience is in our DNA, but also so is striving for excellence in our DNA.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times, if we don't reinforce that, Sekou, that messaging, those narratives don't get out enough.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that given the historic commitment and longevity that UNCF has and the NNPA, you know, this year is the 193rd year of the Black press. Since 1827, Freedom's Journal was first published in New York City. The Black press hasn't missed a week putting that news out there, but we're also an advocate for change.
Yeah.
So, and I know UNCF, just the whole theme of mine is a terrible thing to waste. That phrase resonates, you know, not only throughout our community, but actually through all communities.
Yep.
Because when Black folks achieve excellence, it endures benefit to all people, not just to the Black community. So I just want to pledge to you that as we wrap up this interview, that let's find our way how to work together in real time as we go into the next year.
That sounds great. Looking forward to it. I appreciate it. Hey, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you all today for this piece, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, and good luck on the show. We'll try to make sure somebody covers the event later today.
Sure thing. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Sekou, and give my best to your president. I know him very well.
I will do that. I'll let him know. And hey, I think you're absolutely right. I think the thing that people miss, and we, you know, and I'll send you guys one of the pieces we did on HBCUs, is that, and this is true, you know, you think about Black educators. So there's a bunch of research about the value add of Black teachers in schools.
Exactly.
It actually turns out that Black teachers help all children perform better.
There you go.
White children do better with Black teachers, just like Black children do better with Black teachers. I mean, and I think to your point about, you know, seeing Black excellence, when Black people do well, everybody does well.
That's correct. Yes.
The problem is other people can do well without us doing well, and they just leave us behind.
Exactly. And they make assumptions, sometimes systemic assumptions. That's where systemic racism come from, is that Black people innately do not have the capacity to rise to excellence, or unless you're an exceptional Negro, you know.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is, we not only can achieve on the athletic fields or the athletic courts, I think beyond the shadow of a doubt, there once upon a time there was no Black quarterbacks. Now everybody's trying to get a Black quarterback. So times change. But also the sister, I know we're out of time, the sister who's the leading research position at NIH to help Dr. Corbett, you know, so no matter what field of endeavor, you know, we're out there, as you stated. And the thing is, we just need to highlight those narratives more, particularly for our young brothers and sisters, so they aspire. You know, I think we have to encourage aspirations. I guess that's what I'm trying to make.
I think that's right. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you all very much. Let me know what I can do to help. All right.
All right, man. Thank you again.
Appreciate it. Take care.